In this tutorial, and this one of the MayaBasics series, we're going to look at the bridge tool. So the bridge tool can be found under Edit Mesh. We have bridge, and also under our modeling toolkit, we have our bridge tool here as well. So what bridge does is exactly as it sounds. It bridges between two subcomponents. So I'm just going to go into this example, just duplicate this, Control D, just drag this out of the way. So what it will enable us to do is actually bridge the gap between these two separate parts. Now the first thing is that we actually have to have these combined. It won't work as it currently stands, so these are separate meshes. And even if I go into these and select, let's press Q, and then click on this, and let's right click and go into Edge, click on that, then go into Bridge, we actually get an error. It doesn't work with multiple edge objects selected. So what we need to do is combine these two meshes. So we can do this in two ways. We can shift select them both, and we can either do it through the modeling toolkit, combine, or we can do it up here in the mesh menu, combine. So that's our two combined now. So now when I go in on this in Edge, I've actually still got the edges selected, I can bridge, and it will bridge perfectly between those two. Okay. Now we do need to bridge between the same amount of edges. So if we're going from 3 to 3, absolutely fine. If let's just do a multi-cut on this, cut on this. If I try to go between a separate number, let's go from 4 to 3. Okay, try to bridge that, and we'll get another error. Polybridge edge requires equal number of border edges to be selected for source and target selection. So that's important that we have the same amount of edges to go between. Okay, so just to do it again, select these, like these, and we can bridge. Okay, so let's look at a different example. So I'm going to get this cylinder, let's duplicate this, let's just move this up. So as well as working with edges, so there we had edge selection going between those, we can also do this with polys. So if I just click into face, I'm going to use my tab key just to paint the selection quickly. Oh, first of all, I need to connect these. So let's get those two. Let's combine them. This time we'll do it through the modeling toolkit. It's face. So tab. Allow me to paint this on. Tab on this one. I have my two selections. And again, I can bridge. So the combined, and also this is the same amount of edges going around here as well. So let's just look at some of the options on this. So we have our divisions. We can add multiple divisions in there. We have a taper, which I'll look at in a second. You may notice that taper doesn't work right now. Let's just set this back to 1. We have a twist, and the twist will create a twisted section within our mesh, which can be quite useful if you're creating sort of decorative balustrades and a staircase. Can be quite handy. The detail on this really is down to the amount of subdivisions as to how that looks. Okay, so the more subdivisions we have, the more we can do with a twist, essentially. So to get the taper working, we just need to change the curve type. So a linear curve type is going to try to create a straight line between these. A taper requires essentially a curve to be in this. So I'm going to change the curve type from linear to blend. And now we have the ability to be able to change the blend value of this. I'll just take the twist down. And you can see that working, okay? And it just blends, averaging out the distance between those. So again, can be quite a handy way to do this without having to go in and create subdivisions and then scale all the edge loops in to create this look. Quite quick and easy to do. We can, by the way, change these properties. So even if I go out of this tool, okay, back to object mode, I can still go into my channel box. And this is the same with all the tools. In our inputs, I now have this polybridge edge. This is a node we've added to this. And we have these values here. Okay. So to access these, I've mentioned this in other tutorials, just highlight it, press Control and middle mouse drag, and then we can change the values of these. Okay. Start twisting this round. Taper, do the same. Divisions, can do the same on there. Okay. So nothing's really set in stone. What you do have to be careful of, if we did something else on the top of this stack that was dependent on, say, the amount of divisions in this, then going backwards can break if you change the options on this. So you do have to be careful about going back and forth between these things. As a final one, I'm just going to click on this. Let me just move these out of the way just for a second. And let's just bring this in. I'm just going to snap these to the grid. So drag this pressing X. You can see X snaps toggles our snap to grid on. I'm going to do the same here. Let's move this up. Now, even though these are two separate shapes, I've actually done this so they're the same amount of geometry. So if I just go in, double click on this edge, I have my poly count up, so you can see over here on my edges, the current selected one is 12 edges. If I click on this, and let's just press Q, let's just double click on these. Here we have 12 edges. So exactly the same. So again, we just need to combine these. Let's go into our modeling tools, let's combine. I'm in the sub-object mode right now. Make sure you're at object level. So let's combine those. And again, I'm going to go into face mode and just use my tab to paint on this selection. Paint on that. And then we can do a bridge. Okay. We can bridge between these two. Now what you may find, and actually we're bridging kind of a line on that. So actually we can do this bridge offset. We can bridge this round. That's going to create a twist. But to be honest with this, it's the only way we could do it. Let me just undo these just a second, just kind of show you a different version of this. And let me just change the count on this just quickly. So rather than 12, let's have this as, let's try a 16. Let's change this to be 4x4. Okay, grab these. Again, let's just combine those. Let's go into face mode, and again with my tab key. Get those, and let's bridge those. So actually you can see with 16 we have this center line on there. Sometimes what you will get though, and I'll just break this, is where it's not going exactly from one edge to the other edge. Okay, so I just, as an example, kind of show you. So what we'd expect, I'll just show you one copy of this. If I grab this edge, we would expect this edge to be going to the corresponding edge above it. So just bridging like that, and then all the way around for this edge to go into this edge, etc., etc. Okay. And sometimes Maya will do that. Sometimes it won't. So if it doesn't, we do have this bridge offset that you can actually just offset these by a number of edges until we get the right sort of corresponding edge selecting as well. Okay, so that's just something to be aware of. The bridge offset will fix those issues if you do get them. Okay. So the final thing with this, and let me again just give you an example. It's going to create a box, Control D. Let's get something like this. And again, I'm going to grab these two, I'm going to combine them. So if I just go into this and select both of these, and I'm just going to check my settings on this just a second, just reset this for a second. So if I have this, and I do a bridge, it's just going to create a linear path. But if I want a bit of an arc on this, if I was actually creating an arc itself on this, and I want this to be a curved edge, rather than having to go in and create the divisions and play around that way and then start going in and manipulating these, moving them around, scaling them about, and really kind of playing about with it, which you could do with a bit of time. Obviously we're trying to do things as quickly as possible. So rather than doing that, what I can do, just go into the options, so bridge, into the settings, and the bridge type I'm going to change from a linear path. The smooth path is like the blend. I'm going to switch to the smooth path plus curve. Click on this option, and I'm just going to apply this. Oops. Make sure I have my two faces selected. Okay, let's bridge again. So this time when I bridge, I have this curve here. And this is going to define how this is bridging from our two selected components. What I need to do is just start adding more subdivisions to this. So as we add subdivisions in there, that starts working around that curve. So rather than us having to do that manually, this does this automatically for us. So this, if I just click into wireframe 4, let's click into object mode. In the center of this, we have this curve, which is essentially a NURBS curve. It's a CV curve. And what I can do with this, this mesh is based around this curve. That's how it's doing the bridge. And I can actually go in, if I right click and click on Control Verts, making sure I have this selected. I can actually go in and just with my move tool start moving these around. And this is going to define how this mesh is being built up from this curve. So we can actually tweak this and build some differences in there and create quite complex objects. Okay, you can do that all from the curve rather than having to extrude or reshape this straight away. The one thing to note with this is that if I just move the object out of the way, it starts deforming. This is because of the way it's working on the curve. So once you're happy with this, you've got to delete the history. Otherwise you'll have that problem with it. So once I've got that and I'm happy with that shape, I can go to Edit, Delete by Type, just to the history, or Alt-Shift-D. And now I've got that. Now I can move that individually without ruining the shape. Okay, so that's a couple of examples of the bridge tool.